everybody, welcome to our very first co-op review. I'm your host Gexup.
I'm Amuya.
And we're going to be reviewing on a game called
Sly Cooper and the Thievius Raccoonus.
Hey everybody, I'm deeply sorry for the long delay, but Amuya is unable to join with me in this co-op review. I never seen him this busy, but just waiting for him any longer would really slow me down on the videos I want to do. Sorry man, I have to pick someone else to review these games with me. So here he is!
Hello folks, I'm Zookstar1000 and this is our review on Sly Cooper and the Thievius Raccoonus.
Wait a minute, I didn't invite you!
Hit the intro!
Wait, what? Finally, one of my most requested games to review has finally seen the light of day. And I have to thank Zookstar1000 for joining with me in this review. So let's begin, shall we?
Sure thing. The game is about our hero Sly Cooper, who is a master thief related to the Cooper family, who we all know for being the greatest family tree of thieves. Sly follows their footsteps with his trusted best friends Bentley, a turtle who's the master of hacking technology, planning missions and infiltrating data, and Murray, a strong, muscular, but slightly dim-witted and rotund hippopotamus, who serves as both the driver and fighter for the Sly Gang.
They travel around the world stealing some of the most valuable items in the world, only being chased by Detective Carmelita Montoya Fox, who's doing her very best to catch Sly and bring him to justice. But in this installment of Sly Cooper, Sly and the gang are seeking for his stolen Thievius Raccoonus. The Thievius Raccoonus is a book inherited by the Cooper family for many generations, which contains all the secrets of being the master thief. The Cooper family isn't entirely evil just because they're thieves, but instead they steal valuables from many of the world's greatest criminals. It was soon to be brought down to Sly as the new owner of the Thievius Raccoonus until a gang of baddies called the Fiendish Five has intruded the Cooper family house and eliminated his family and thus made him an orphan. There, living at the orphanage, he met his two best friends, Bentley and Murray, who soon bond together to be the Sly Gang and take vengeance in stealing back the Thievius Raccoonus. The one who stole it was the Cooper family's arch nemesis, an owl named Clockwork. It's hard to find Clockwork's location, so the only way to find him is to fight and question each member of the Fiendish Five. Sir Raleigh, the Welsh Frog, Mugshot, the crime boss Bulldog, Miss Ruby, a large hillbilly alligator, and Panda King, the Kung Fu Panda.
Wait, Kung Fu Panda?
No, I didn't mean that!
During the game, you learn more of Sly Cooper's backstory and his motivation for stealing back the Thievius Raccoonus when you go through the cutscenes, and every one of those cinematic cutscenes is hand-drawn, which I find it quite interesting since we don't see games made like this.
Listening to Sly narrating those cutscenes has that film noir style that is similar to another game inspired by film noir, Grim Fandango.
Yeah, so I guess that's what you need to know about the story, so now we'll talk about the gameplay.
Sure thing. What you should all know about the Sly Cooper series is that it's not just a 3D platformer, it's a stealth platformer. This is unlike any other platformer and stealth game I have ever experienced. Of course there were stealth elements in other platformers before Sly Cooper, but in Sly Cooper and the Thievius Raccoonus, never have I experienced a mixture between stealth and platforming to fit so perfectly.
Yeah, I love this innovation because there are other stealth games out there that I wished had better controls, and when this game was released my wish was granted, and I was hooked onto this game.
The one thing about the gameplay is that it's a point A to B platformer with so many obstacles to go through, which involves climbing on rails, dodging incoming traps and dangers, fighting or sneaking through guards and security, and solving plenty of puzzles. There were so many things thrown at this game that it will keep you entertained from beginning to end.
Not to mention that this game isn't easy because you have one-hit kills.
Now that you mention it, I now know why I like the first Sly game so much, because it's very reminiscent to the original Crash Bandicoot games on the Sony PlayStation. Sly 1 is a linear point A to B type of 3D platformer, but it's not as linear as the Crash Bandicoot games because you have enough room to explore in each level, just enough to make camera control in good use. The one-hit kills are one thing, but thankfully you got many chances by collecting these lucky horseshoes, which is similar to the Aku Aku Witch Doctor mask from Crash Bandicoot. You can carry a total of 2 lucky horseshoes, which gives you chances to stay alive and get back right up your feet from falling into water, cliffs, bottomless pits, or get hit by any enemy. And each damage that Sly gets, he loses a horseshoe. And if he doesn't have any lucky horseshoes, the next time you get hit, you die and you end up to your last checkpoint.
Every part of the game has a homeworld for you to select a level, but what I like about Sly 1 over most 3D platformers is that you don't just enter the homeworld or the location to where your boss is. Each time you select a homeworld to enter, you begin with the level that leads you to the homeworld. This puts some story element within your adventure, as it does make sure that it's not just getting to a homeworld or select a level like how normally a 3D platformer works.
But sometimes the story does indeed interfere with the gameplay because almost every level Bentley always interrupt you and give you lectures on what you're supposed to be doing.
Hey! Bentley is helping you in this mission, not lecturing you. I mean, how are you supposed to know how to get past through many of these obstacles without his help, without getting caught?
Alright, I know, but it seems that he does it very often, and it does slow down the game. Not to mention that all the radioing that Sly does with other characters is unskippable. Quite frankly, I still would like my gameplay while listening to Bentley and other characters communicating with Sly while still playing the game.
Dude, if you're gonna criticize Sly 1 for the radioing segments, you might as well do the same thing on the Metal Gear Solid series. You know, one of your favourite series.
Alright already, jeez!
Moving along. Like I said, there are several homeworlds you have to go through, and each of these homeworlds have more than plenty of levels to keep you occupied. In every level you're in, you have several collectibles to get. There are 100 coins you can collect that gives you a lucky horseshoe that we've already discussed about. For the more important ones, you have to get the big key in each level, and those keys will gain you access to another part of the homeworld, depending on how many keys you need to unlock the locks that stands in your way from getting closer to the boss you have to fight. Another important aspect of the game is that there are a certain number of clue bottles scattered around each of the levels.
And the most redeeming part about collecting all the clue bottles in each and every one of those levels is that by the end of each level, there is a safe to unlock. With the help of Bentley, he uses the clue bottles that you have collected to find the code for the safe. In each and every one of those safes, you got yourself a page of the Thievius Raccoonus, and it contains one of the secrets of that very book that gives you a new power/ability. And I've got to say, more than half of those power-ups and abilities that you earn from collecting those clue bottles are some of the coolest, if not the best power-ups I have seen in any platformer game. From slow motion, getting you out of the water and bottomless pits without losing a life, turning invisible, and more. You name it, all the power-ups are very useful, and to me, it's probably one of the coolest ever.
Well, not every level has clue bottles for you to collect, because each homeworld also has plenty of mini-games like protecting Murray from enemy encounter by rail shooting the target, play as Murray to race against other racers, Carmelita case sequences.
That's considered a regular level, only more fast-paced.
Whatever. Bentley's hacking minigames, rhythm-based sequences, Sly riding on a hover vehicle to shoot down many foes, and a lot tons more.
And as for the last collectible for each level, when the level is completed, all the clue bottles are collected, and the secret move is found from the safe, the player can attempt a Master Sprint Challenge. This is very similar to the time trial mode from Crash Bandicoot Warped, where the player has to reach from the beginning of the level all the way to the end so that you can beat the best time, and beating the best time in all the levels in the game is the one way to get 100% completion.
And you can't beat any of those Master Sprint challenges without having to use any of the power-ups that make you go faster. And boy, trying to beat those challenges are not easy at all.
Since we've got that out of the way, let's discuss about the most unique element of the entire game that separates itself from many platformers, the stealth elements.
You know, Gexup, you were introduced to the stealth action genre with Metal Gear Solid, but this game introduced me to the genre. Playing this game for the first time, I loved this feature because it was a very unique experience that I find soothing and comfortable to play it compared to the other fast-paced games out there.
Another thing I like to point out is that stealth games in the past always frustrates the player trying to make your character to lean against walls and other stealthy actions. And sometimes in platformers, when there are places that you have to land on, they're too narrow and too small, and sometimes it's almost impossible to perfectly land on it. Here in Sly Cooper and the Thievius Raccoonus, it made everything a lot easier by pressing the circle button to do a certain action whenever Sly sees special areas with blue sparkles of light. This signals that the player that he or she is able to apply actions such as, again, leaning against walls, hanging on hooks, railing, landing on narrow locations, and more.
This helps a lot considering that other games had a hard time doing these actions, but here all you have to do is spot those areas coloured with blue sparkles. Yeah, and what makes the stealth put in good use for a game like this is that there are more than plenty of goons that are on patrol making sure nobody should trespass in their area, not only in the levels but also in the homeworlds as well. Many of them carry a flashlight, and the only way you can alarm them is that to let the flashlight touch you or making crashing noises to get their attention. Not only enemies are the only thing to worry about when trying not to get caught, but there are also traps such as lasers that can signal alarm when you hit them, and hit the laser for the second time will give you a one-shot kill or take away a lucky horseshoe. To deactivate the lasers, there is an alarm sound passed through the laser that you can destroy, which disables the lasers so that it can be easy to backtrack when you miss a collectible.
But back on the enemies, there are plenty of threatening ones that can signal an alarm, but what sort of kinda ruins the stealth feel is that there are enemies that don't have the ability to start an alarm, but they appear as random encounters where no matter what happens, if you get close to them, they can easily spot you. I find it as a bit of a ruining moment because these are just enemies that are random encounters that are not part of the stealth aspect of the game, and to have them to spot you no matter what the circumstances are, I feel like the stealth could have been used a bit better.
While we're on the topic of enemies, what did you think of the boss fights?
Well, for me, there are some ups and downs for the bosses.
You know what? Same here.
My favorite boss in the whole game would perhaps be battling King Panda, where it felt like this is where all the boss fights in this game should be like. And let's not forget about the epic battle with Clockwork. Despite this boss fight being just a rail shooter, words cannot describe how intimidating he was first time seeing him. That voice of his was really evil. I mean, we knew what we were up against, but I never could imagine an owl to be so intimidating as to that other owl from Secret of Nim.
You know what? I have to agree with you. Even though I had a rough time controlling the jetpack, this boss fight was definitely a worthy finale to the game. It kinda reminded me a little of the Reuploaded boss from Spyro 2, don't you think? So now that we know our ups with the boss fights, you mentioned that there were downs, am I right?
Yeah, perhaps the weakest and most uninspiring boss fight of the whole entire game would have to be battling Miss Ruby. Already she knew that you were coming by screaming at Sly's name at the teleprompter, which already ruined the move by sneaking up to her level. And when you finally reach her, she didn't display a fight, but rather a dumb rhythm-based game that was just really tedious to go through.
And here I agree with you again. I mean, what kind of villain is Ms. Ruby supposed to be when she just blasts random rhythm spells at you from a far distance? This is why I heavily despise rhythm minigames, because they require perfect timing and quick thinking. But here, it's just outrageous! By far one of the most frustrating parts of the entire Sly series. I don't really want to be negative here, but since this is a review, let's get on with it. But since I know Gexup very well, and him saying anything negative will keep him talking, I shall start. I wish that Murray was more in his full potential in Sly 1, rather than having him for you to protect him and play as him to race other people. When Gexup said that the enemies who will always find you ruins the stealth feel of the game, I disagree. At least those guys are never heard from again after you defeat them. But here, why do you need racing? In a stealth game? A chase scene would fit well, but racing with other enemies during a mission, don't you think that's kinda stretching our suspense of disbelief a little bit? For me, the racing parts are the only thing that I didn't like about this game.
Well, I got nothing more to add other than the stuff that I dislike, like Miss Ruby as a boss fight, and of course the racing minigames. But other than that, I have plenty of things to say that I really like about Sly Cooper and the Thievius Raccoonus. Mainly, I love the cell shading graphics of this game, which was going for the animated feel like the Wind Waker, and with the cell shading design, it really does fit the anime cutscenes in this game, and it suits very well with the comic book feel that Sucker Punch was going for. In your adventure, you got this film noir feel that you don't get often in video games. The highlight of Sly Cooper and the Thievius Raccoonus for me are the power-ups. Since there are so many that you can earn, all of them are just so cool, just as they were useful for various situations. From making a decoy out of yourself, slow motion effect, stunning your enemies by hitting them with a cane to the ground to freeze time, not losing a life when you fall into bottomless pits and bodies of water, and so much more. All of this with no limits.
Yeah, for me, like I said, it's the gameplay that really got me very interested in this series, which is now my favourite video game series ever. My favourite part of the game is of course the characters. The blend between stealth and platforming to me is very ingenious. Sly, Bentley and Murray are three of my all-time favourite video game characters of all time. The reason why Sly is one of my favourite video game protagonists is that he doesn't act all tough and superhero-like. Instead, he is one Thievius dick, always making cocky remarks and teasing Carmelita whenever she tries to catch him. Bentley, well, because even though he doesn't get out in the field like Sly and Murray do, he still proves his use to the team by giving Sly the tips he needs to progress and at times helps Sly whenever he's in danger. As for Murray, well, I do like how they made him all goofy and crazy because that's what you usually find in a cartoon character, but I mainly prefer his personality in the sequels. Carmelita was also one of my favourites because she isn't just the typical damsel in distress or just a bland love interest thrown in for the male protagonist, but she's one tough cop and still proves a major obstacle for Sly to escape from.
One more thing I like to point out about Sly Cooper's gameplay. I know that there are a lot of fans of the series that say the sequels are better, but hear me out. You don't see the style of point A to B type of 3D platformer anymore. Back when I got the PlayStation 2, I gave up being a fan of the Crash and Spyro games because of their awful debut on the PlayStation 2. And I have to say that I never thought that I would go back and return loving the old school style of 3D platforming gameplay ever again, and it's much more atmospheric with its dark and soothing tone throughout the game.
Speaking of dark, soothing, what do you think is your favourite level or homeworld on Sly Cooper and the Thievius Raccoonus?
Boy, that's a tough choice, because all the levels in this game has a really nice dark atmosphere. But since you ask, I have to say my favorite level in the entire game has to be Vicious Voodoo. This swamp level is very comfortable to play through because I believe that this is where the stealth was at its full potential. And not to mention that it was crazy to see that giant snake chasing you. That really did surprise me, despite Miss Ruby being that boss of that home world.
My favourite will have to go to Mesa City, because it's the most Sly Cooperish level in the game. I know that this level has one of those annoying racing minigames that I complained about earlier, but the rest of the level is like a parody of 1970s gangster movies like The Godfather or Scarface, and I really like how everything is based on casinos and dark alleys because that's one of my favourite types of levels in video games. Plus the music was also suitable and energetic for the level, and that to me is the highlight of Sly 1.
Sucker Punch really struggled to be in the video game industry because when Sly Cooper and the Thievius Raccoonus was released, it didn't sell too well compared to other 3D platformers on the PlayStation 2 like Jak and Daxter in the precursor Legacy and the original Ratchet & Clank. This is the second time Sucker Punch released a game that didn't sell too well, first being Rocket Robot on Wheels, which is another 3D platformer that deserves as much attention.
Yeah, when I got the game, I barely met anyone who bought or played Sly Cooper and the Thievius Raccoonus, and it's a darn shame that this game had so much originality, and yet many people weren't familiar with this new style of gameplay. But yeah, I'm glad that Sly Cooper and the Thievius Raccoonus didn't flop commercially, because it was worthy enough to make more sequels on the PlayStation 2.
Or hell, Sucker Punch would have probably been out of business and we would never see another game from them. In fact, critics recognize the game's full potential. GameSpy put Sly Cooper and the Thievius Raccoonus at number 5 on the top 25 underrated games of all time.
Whoa, that's high.
Yeah, that shows how great Sly Cooper was back in 2002, and I still love it to this day. Since this is our first co-op review, Zookstar and I are going to offer our own score for this game. My score for Sly Cooper and the Thievius Raccoonus is a 5 fingers out of 5.
My score for Sly Cooper and the Thievius Raccoonus is a bag of tangy cheese Doritos.
Dude, what the hell are you rating games out of nacho cheese Doritos for? This review is going to be on my channel, so we're going to be doing it on Gexup's ratings.
Oops, sorry. My score for Sly Cooper and the Thievius Raccoonus is a 4 fingers out of 5. It really is a unique video game experience, and I strongly recommend anyone who likes old school style platforming to feel like a breath of fresh air to try the game out.
You know, stealth games were known for being targeted for adults and older gamers because of its mature storylines and being too violent for younger gamers. But here in Sly Cooper and the Thievius Raccoonus, this gives not only younger players the opportunity to experience what a stealth game is, but it also appealed to gamers of all ages.
Yeah, that's what I really appreciate the Sly series for, because at the time I was too young for games like Metal Gear Solid and Splinter Cell, but after playing this game I became a fan of the stealth action genre.
So that wraps up our review on Sly Cooper and the Thievius Raccoonus. Join us next time when we review
Sly 2 Band of Thieves.
See you next time.
Poochow!